When Sasquatch became a household name, and no one was afraid of that anymore, and the next thing you know, investigators are going out and they're finding this and that. That was supposed to happen in man's evolution. You know why? Because once you can accept Sasquatch as a household word, household name, household experience, then it's easier for you to now start to accept what else might come in. My name's Tish Paquette, and I am a hypnotherapist, a massage therapist, a Reiki master, energy worker, and I am a paranormal consultant and a communicator with the paranormal in many forms. I'm also a hypnotist, and I do all of this in my little abode right here. I grew up on a 500-acre ranch in Northern California, and I was the youngest of 6. And so my brothers and sisters would go to school before me. It was a country school. You got to walk to it, not quite the 5 miles in the snow, but for this little kid, it seemed a long way. Anyway, I would see things. I already knew that at 5, my world wasn't normal. My reality was different, and I was uncertain because I didn't know how to relate it. And when I would talk to my mom, she'd listen, and she's pretty good. So we decided to keep it quiet. I would go up behind the house there. There's 200 acres behind the house and 300 across the road. And my stepdad, would be cutting wood for the winter. And so sometimes I'd go up in the meadow, and sometimes he'd be chopping the limbs off. And I'd hear chop, chop. And then I'd hear chop, chop. And, I'm a kid. What do I know? And so later I asked Dad, I said, why is it that when you make these wood sounds, I hear them clear over there? Oh, yeah, it's just an echo. And I'm like, but it's not the right timing for an echo. Well, he's not going to answer that. I mean, come on, kid, quit asking questions I can't answer. So this continued for a while. And then at night, I had to go to bed first because I was the youngest. And the room is probably twice this size, window on that side, window here, window there, window there. And my bed was by the hallway. And I'm in bed, and I'm looking out the window, and I see shiny circles. And I'm like, what's that? But I'm too scared to look. So I go running down the hall, and I tell them, there's something out looking at me. There isn't, the usual. I'm 5 years old. I make up stories, right? Maybe. So it was poo-pooed, and I went back to bed, and then things on top of the roof falling. And Dad said, oh, those are acorns falling. Okay. So then I heard the snort of a horse, and then I said to Dad, it's still there. So Dad went out, and he said, oh, it's just this tin can here on the ground and the moon and the clouds passing the moon. And it looked like it was blinking. And I'm like, yeah, except I didn't see it down there. I saw it up here. Anyway, so later, Dad came home for lunch, and he's white as a sheet. And he says, don't let the kids go up in the upper field. And so then all the ranchers got together, all the men got together and talked, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's the biggest bear I ever saw, whatever. So later, a couple of the other ranchers saw it, and they knew it wasn't a bear. But they had to keep us calm. And I was kind of the sneaky kid. I mean, I was, unobtrusive. I could walk around and hear adults' conversations, just whatever. They don't even know I'm there, And so I would hear stuff that was going on. And so then what was the clincher was Dad had a certain call that he would make to bring the cattle to the barn. Now, remember, we have a lot of acreage. But the minute he would make that call, from all the corners of our place, the cattle came to the barn. And I asked him, and I said, hey, Dad, where did you learn to make that call? And he said, oh, I heard it somewhere. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, I didn't know any of this as being Sasquatch connections, but I could feel energy of something. It wasn't harmful for me, but it was big and I didn't understand it. So we kept it quiet until I got older and was able to then piece together going to Bigfoot conferences and whatever. And I heard people's stories, and then I knew what it was. And then I've had things that would shapeshift or would be here and then gone. And I always knew I was being watched. I always knew when the big guy, now that I could identify it, was around. And then my brother encountered one working for the Forest Service in the Sierra Nevadas, and he saw it on the ridge, and he ran up there, and he it was gone, obviously, but he sketched a picture. And he held on to that picture for 50 years, and he never told anybody. And then when he found out that I was going to, years ago, be involved in Sasquatch, one of the few things he ever kept of his stuff was that picture, and he gave it to me. And I shared that with a number of people, his rendition of Sasquatch. And then when I went to Guy Edwards' Sasquatch meetings in Portland every month, they knew what I do, and they asked, have you ever tried communicating telepathically? Well, I knew I could feel, and I knew when, but I never really thought of that because I thought, well, doesn't it everybody? I mean, you just talk, right? So I said, okay, I'll try it. And so I did, and I sat in my quiet space and talked to Sasquatch, and I asked 7 questions. And the next speaker was going to be Kawani Lapsaritis at our gathering, and I didn't know who he was. I was a novice, okay? And so I had put the answers that I got in a sealed envelope and gave it to Guy. And I said, at the end of this, would you ask Kawani the question and then see the answer? And they all matched. So then I knew that the communication that I was having was indeed with Sasquatch as an adult. And then Tom Powell invited me to his property, and we had a couple of encounters there, and the sky just opened up. So one thing I'll say, you don't necessarily have to be out in the woods to communicate with Sasquatch. You just have to hold space, an open space, and be honest and pure about it. And don't overthink it. Don't try to make it fit anything. And you will get the information and the sensatory feelings and energy, knowing you're communicating with them. There are others out there that say, oh, they're mean and they're this and they're that. Well, I am really sorry if that's been your experience. My experience has been benevolent and loving and protective. So I do know that if there is an energy that is strong that you might perceive as negative, you're either in their birthing area, you have ill intent, and you desecrate Mother Earth. They are not happy with people who leave garbage, who have wild parties, who do all kinds of... No. Lastly, and this is controversial, but hey, what isn't? They're the keepers of the portals. And what I mean by that is we know that there are portals and things come and go through the portals. We also know that Sasquatch has been connected with greys or other entities. And if you take a map and overlay, just in Oregon and Washington, all the sightings where Sasquatch has been, reported, and then you take a clear map and dot where UFO activity has been, they're going to match up. But they're the keeper of the portals. And so I know, because I've experienced this, certain times of the year, certain energies are shifting or whatever, other things come through the portal. And they're actually protecting us. So if something is going to be super harmful, they will shoo you away from the area. And I know that I've experienced this happening, and they're protecting us, but we don't always understand that. Things that I experience out in the forest to kind of hone in a little bit on what I'm talking about. When I'm taking a walk, number one, I kind of set my idea of going. I'm just going to commune with Gaia, with Mother Earth, with nature, and any critters that might come around. I welcome them. That always puts you in a different frequency. So when I'm out walking, then you pick up energy. Energy's everywhere. And so frankly, we're a dime a dozen. A lot of people have their third eye open. They're just not utilizing it, or they can't identify what they're experiencing it. So when I go out there, I can pick up an energy over here or an energy or behind, and I can distinguish between if that's Sasquatch energy, if that's angelic energy, if that's, I've had Nords come and visit, I have Greys come and visit, I've had Mantis come and visit. So they all have distinct energies, just like we all have distinct energies. And so when you're just still and calm and you enter into Gaia's energy, Mother Earth's energy, you're more sensitive to pick up the others. And you'll get orbs and you'll get flashes of light and you'll get all kinds of things. And what I usually do is I go, "Hi, thanks for visiting. Do you want to tell me anything? Is there, you just want to hang out? Because we can just hang out and just be." And you'll get more downloads and more information. And I just got to laugh. I just got to chuckle. You'll get a chuckle or whatever. Because I'm not searching for them. My energy isn't anxious. It isn't, wow, I just want to find a footprint today. And then you lose it because you're in your mental brain, and so you may not find that. Some do, and that's great. But most of the time when people are really set out, and they'll be disappointed, because I would recommend you go and sit and just be still. And you can sing or you can hum, because they love music. Well, not all music, but just being calm is a real doorway for them to enter. From my experience, I believe they're interdimensional. I believe that they can cloak. We know this, just like other things can cloak, just like the military has figured out cloaking. And I believe that they can appear and disappear and change their frequency, their energy. That's many times why the pictures are blurry, because they're vibrating at a higher frequency that our cameras aren't sensitive enough to have it slow down, the shutter speed. I'm not a photographer, but you know what I mean. I sometimes have seen just the chest. I've been touched before on Tom's property. I was touched, and I was given the name of the Sasquatch that had been on his property and visited him 20 years prior. And sometimes you can just see the feet, sometimes just the chest, whatever they want to appear to you. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a communication here. I mentioned Tom Powell. And so this one said, "Tell Tom thank you for keeping his place safe." Because there's Sasquatch that birth over there, and it's safe. So you can, whatever you want to do with that information, I'll let Tom know later. Sorry about that. But that's how it happens. It pops in, and then you have to honor it, and you just have to be still and go, "Okay, can you clarify that for me? Did I hear that right?" Or whatever. And try not to make it fit. Over the years, I have learned, because when I first started doing this in my 20s, you doubt yourself. So all of you who have that intuitive gifting, and you know you do, but you don't know what to do about it or how to handle it, take a deep breath. Number one, it isn't about you. And what I mean by that is you just give out the information. What people do with it is their responsibility. Now, I'll have people come in, and I'll do readings on them, and I'll say, who's Jack? "Oh, I don't know any Jack." And I just smile, because I know over the years, Jack's going to come to their mind. And I'll say, da-da-da-da-da. And a year later, 2 years later, I'll get this, hey, remember when you said da-da-da-da-da? So I never doubt the information. It just may not fit right then, and don't panic. Just sit with it and wait and see, because it always filters through. The minute you start getting in your head and start trying to make it fit or call it something else, you're blocking your flow. So relax. It'll come. Trust your gut. Your gut's connected to all your intuitive piece. Just trust it and give the information. Well, you're wrong. My famous answer most times will always be, oh, okay. Okay. It is not about me. I'm just delivering the information. And you can too. And you have been. You just have to get out of your way and trust what's coming down. Like when I do angelic communication and I introduce the angels to the people, I'll get a lot of information. And some of that isn't meant for me to share right then. So I don't. And I wait till they tell me when to call them, or they may come back, and then I can share additional information because they weren't ready the first time. So I don't push it, I don't shove it, I just wait. Mel and Jim and I were asked to go to this property, and there was a film crew from California. And I think that's all I'm supposed to say about that. But anyway, we went way up in the boondocks there in the gorge somewhere up there. And the gentleman there said that Sasquatch is always on his property and da-da-da-da-da. So the camera people and all went over to talk to whomever. And Mel and I are just, we had one camera guy with us, and we're just kind of chatting. And I get out of the rig, and there's this meadow, and there's this tree in the meadow, center almost. And I go, Mel, right here, there was a female and her young, and the young went to the tree, and the female was trying to keep it from running away or playing or whatever, and it kept climbing in the tree and playing and running around. And then way off over here was a sentinel, was probably the dad, keeping an eye. And so the cameraman, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry. You're not going to get it, panning your camera there. The energy, the residual energy was still there. So the lady comes out on the deck from this house, and she's the mother of the people they're talking to. And I asked her name and how she was doing, and I said, so have you seen any Sasquatch? And she goes, let me tell you, yesterday there was a female Sasquatch with her child, and child was running ahead, and she was trying to catch up, and it was playing in the tree and running around, and Daddy was standing over there keeping an eye on him. And Mel and I just looked at each other, and we went, okay. And that happens a lot. And so we continued that evening, and I knew they were up here on the ridge watching. But I also knew they weren't going to come down. The guy, it wasn't the best set of circumstances. I'll just say that. So, but it was a beautiful experience that we had. So I love those validations. I don't doubt them, and I don't care if anyone believes me or not. I know what I know. I've been doing this too long to doubt it. And it's just wonderful to be validated. It's wonderful, though, just to have the honor to just connect and for them to trust information with you. It's very humbling. It's beautiful. I love it. Well, that'll depend on the Sasquatch as well. However, I understand the question you're asking about why does it seem that some people are able to attract or have more encounters than others? It's usually frequency. And a fair number of people aren't even aware they're in the frequency. But they also know your heart, okay? And this has been speculated, and I have Native American in me too. So, and so does Mel. And so the tendency is that you're almost, there's a different frequency having some Native American blood. I'll just say that much. You can poo-poo it, whatever. But consistently, I've seen it across the board. But primarily, if you're in a hot spot and you don't even know it, one of you in that group is going to be more sensitive than others. And they know who you are, and they can connect with you or leave things, and all of a sudden you'll go, oh, I know what this means. Or, I know, because they know. And they do want to communicate, but we're kind of kindergarten to them. So they're very cautious and little bits at a time. But again, if you intrude on those 4 things I mentioned, they'll let you know that they're there and to stop. So, but no, some people just naturally, Mel's one of them, and other people that you've mentioned. Do we always get what we want? No, but something will happen. It's just like people who resonate more with angels or resonate more with fairies. I mean, we have them all, and we've had all kinds of things. There is so much out here that I would be sitting like this right now, crowded, if I could see all the energies that are around us, even the energies in this building. It's everywhere. And I've mentioned before in a previous talk, if you see things from your periphery, that's another dimension. If you see things straight on, that's your 3rd dimension, 3rd eye, where we're at right now. But you know, and you've had this experience, and I always make the joke, except for mice, because we always see mice in the corner of our eye. But you know when you're walking down a building or a sidewalk or whatever, and something catches you here, but when you turn, it's not there. It was from this other dimension. And so if that should happen, I'll just give you this. If this should happen to you, don't get frightened. Just be still and try to hone in on your periphery and see what else comes through. But we're so quick automatically just to turn to look instead of just resting and being still and seeing what else might come through here and here. Because this is other dimensional sight, and this is 3D sight. Respect's the number 1 rule. Respect their space, respect their territory, and when you do that, they will inch closer. Are we meant to go find them? Go find is a different thing, but are we meant to interact? Yes, and here's why. Sasquatch, and I've shared again, is the precursor. When Sasquatch became a household name, and no one was afraid of that anymore. And the next thing you know, investigators are going out and they're finding this and that. That was supposed to happen in man's evolution. You know why? Because once you can accept Sasquatch as a household word, household name, household experience, then it's easier for you to now start to accept what else might come in. And then we're not so afraid of that. And what else might come in, and then we're not so afraid of that. The veil is thin. There are a lot more things happening and coming through. And even government is saying, oh, there's, ETs and there's this and that. And there are so many other energies and entities that we commingle with and we don't even know that have come through. And it's our time now to raise humanity's vibration and energy. And when we do that, then we create an open door for them to communicate with us. So some people are frightened of that, and that's why it took so long for Sasquatch to be a household name, because of fear. And mankind's wrapped up in fear right now. So it halts our progress. And Sasquatch just sits back and watches. And not only Sasquatch, but other things out there. And I know that there are other things out there because I've experienced them out there and even in my quarters here. So we are on the precipice of another shift, of another frequency hike. And we feel it in our bodies. How many of you, this month alone or the end of January felt really off and heightened and you couldn't explain it and there was this jittery and there was this, because we were going through another shift. And we keep going through a shift. And with the planetary alignments, people go, this is biblical. Well, maybe it is. Point being is, it's pulling energies a different way. And we're going to experience it. Our bodies are very sensitive to energy. And it's everywhere. So people are, when they don't understand it and they can't sit back and just wait it out, they're going to get amped up and think they're crazy, think they're whatever, and you just need to take a deep breath and wait. You don't have to have an answer right now. You don't have to react right now. just take a deep breath and sit back, because it will settle out. Only it will settle out at a higher frequency. So the question is, why would some people experience Sasquatch maybe visually or a footprint or what, and others not? And yet the others may be equally as invested in wanting to find Sasquatch or experience Sasquatch. The majority of people out there are invested in wanting to do that, and they'll get bits and pieces and little dribbles here and there. Number one, it's frequency. Number two, I believe that Patty purposely wanted to be visible, and all this happened after that because it would shift mankind's thinking, and mankind needed to shift its thinking. So all possibilities, all things are out there now. We're not so afraid. I can't 100% say why some experience it and others don't. I'm thinking that maybe you're stuck in an expectation of what it should look like. Some people are very happy to just have a glyph over here. That's all they need. Maybe a feather left on their windshield, but they know what that means. The handprint in the dust. Wonderful. Others, because of our frequency and how we relate to the world, this reality, those experiences may not be as real to us because we're heartfelt. We may feel the energy and we don't need the feather or the handprint or the whatever. And they tend to kind of know how to relate. But it's just like other people in the paranormal experiences of anything paranormal. They'll come and they want to see a ghost. Why don't I see a ghost? And yet other people can see them floating right along. Usually because you have this expectation, you're locked into it. Whether Hollywood has helped you or whatever, you're locked into, oh, it's supposed to look like this. Well, I'm sorry, it's not. It can be anything. But when you hone in your frequency, when you hone in your sensitivity, more and more things will happen. You'll experience more, see more, hear more. I hear, see, smell, touch, but that's been 50 years of experiencing, of honing it in, of not doubting it. If you want to experience, you have to go in without an expectation. You just have to. I believe also that the quest for Sasquatch or the quest for ghosts or the quest for fairies or angels, whatever that quest is, that's an internal quest. And that means you're seeking you and your balance and your peace as well. And Sasquatch and all the others are just catalysts for you to find who you are and your peace and to come to terms with you and walking peacefully among all the others. That's what I believe. That's what they've told me. That you're out seeking me. What will you do when you find me? They'd given me a download, and it's written in Ray Harwood's booklet from the Yakima thing, and I had gotten a download letter that Sasquatch gave me before I came to Yakima, and it's, what will you do when you find me? Will you hunt me? Will you kill me? What will you do? I said, basically what you're doing is you're seeking you through this. Because you have to admit, folks, whenever you're out in nature, you have a whole different feel, a whole different experience. You're calmer, you're peaceful, as long as you're not we're going to go camp and have the best time. Not that energy, okay? But Mother Nature is out there constantly sharing with you how to be, constantly sharing with you how to experience. And it's beautiful, but we rush around and we're in our heads and I got this much time, I'll go walk, I'll walk. Wow, what great walk, 15 minutes, look what I got. What did you get? Your legs moved, but what did you see? What were you aware of? What did you feel? What did you taste? What did you smell? That's how you relate to the world around you, sensatory. When you go out, and Gaia is more than willing, she gives us so much beauty and so many experiences. Don't think of just Sasquatch. Just think of being and little things come out more and more. I teach a class, I hope I can say this, I teach a class on how to find your intuitive giftings, how to work with them. And one of the advanced classes is I take you out, so I'm going to give it away so you don't have to pay for it, is to go out in the woods and be still and look at the trees and scan them. And one of them will call you. Go to that tree, ask permission to approach it, put your hands on the tree about this high, and breathe in and out and just wait. And just hold it. You'll start getting tingling down to your elbows because now you've entered into the energy of Mother Earth, and you will feel the circulation of the tree up and down. And that's the frequency we enter into in nature. And that's the frequency. I have done it so many times that if you get tired this way, I want you to experience it this way first so you know it's real. And I demonstrated that at the Yakima event. So you could feel it. But you'll get images. You'll get messages. The gentleman in Yakima saw an image that he shared. The person I did this with, a videographer guy, he says, "Oh, I don't have any intuitive ability. I can't do this." And I go, "Put your camera down." And I had him do this. And we happened to be at a cemetery. and all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, I see a soldier like Vietnam." I go, "Oh, okay, stay with it." Oh, he's like 20. Okay. And and then he broke. Because he got frightened. He was afraid. He didn't stick with it long enough. Usually there isn't a negative thing going on. I'm sorry, Hollywood keeps giving you the negative. But, so we talked about it. I said, "Well, how did it feel for you?" He goes, "I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know." I go, "Okay." I walked around the tree, and here was a headstone all by itself behind the tree. And it was a Vietnam soldier in his 20s that had died. And I know he was picking up that young man's energy if he'd stayed with it a little longer. But once you enter into Gaia's frequency and energy, the animals come out. I've had quail and their babies walk all over my legs. I've had lizards come into had all kinds of experiences because you're in the same frequency. And there's no harm there. And they trust and they know. I believe St. Francis of Assisi had that frequency because he always had animals around him. And it's such a beautiful, peaceful frequency. And it's also very healing for us as well. So try it. Call me if you need help or whatever, because the more that can experience Gaia's energy, the more you will get experiences. It's beautiful, it's healing, and it's humbling. If you can enter into the Sasquatch frequency, if we can enter into Gaia's frequency, it opens the door, those portals, the door for other frequencies to come in. And they know each other, okay? And it's not uncommon. When I was asked to talk about this topic, and this person videotaped, and he thought that he had... there was blood in the bottom of his tent, and he thought maybe it was from Sasquatch or whatever. So he came and we talked and this and that. But I'd never been to his campsite or anything, but I can remote view. And I said, "Well, I'm seeing the tent, and it's sitting at an angle, and I said, and I see 4 Sasquatch over here, a red one, one with dark fur, and then I said, where are the rocks?" And he goes, "Oh, there aren't any rocks." And I go, "No, where are the rocks?" And he goes, "Oh, well, there's a river right behind us." And I'm like, "Thank you very much." And so then, because right off here, there was another energy standing there. And it was just watching. And it wasn't Sasquatch, and it wasn't, but it was watching mankind, and there was amusement in this energies, and this ended up being a Nord. I didn't even know what Nords were. Somebody identified it for me one day, but tall, thin, bluish, light-skinned, but very peaceful, but more of the observer, and was watching to see what this person was going to do, along with Sasquatch watching to see what this person was going to do. But like I said, when you open the frequencies or open the energies, things will come through, and you have to know how to manage it and not panic. But again, we have, if fear rules you, you will probably have a fearful experience, I'm sorry to say. If curiosity and wonder and love rule you, it's probably what you're going to bring in. I've had a gray in this room because I was doing a hypnosis on a gentleman who felt that he'd been abducted. And he'd come back a couple times, and he'd been abducted twice. And he was very fearful of this one gray. And so in the process, he could then see the grays around with him laying on this table. And I asked him a few questions. And then the next thing you know, I'm coming to his head on the table, and I go, "Oh, excuse me." And there was a gray standing there, and I bumped into him. Truly, it doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I know what I experienced. And I said, "Oh, excuse me." And I walked around him. And so I'm talking to the gentleman, and he'd always been so fearful and so afraid. And so then I said, "Can you look at this one gray and tell me?" And he goes, that's the one that I was afraid of." And I said, "Well, just ask him if he has a message for you." And all of a sudden, the man just burst into tears. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, it knows me. It loves me. And I've never felt such fatherly love in my entire life." And he just kept sobbing. Those are some of the experiences that happened. But it validated him because he had lived a nightmare life for 30 years. And this happens quite frequently. People are just too afraid to come. But you cannot be afraid, because that won't happen if you're afraid. You hold space and open space, and you trust nothing but the highest and best, and that's what you get. That is a huge question, to how to overcome your fear. And I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, nor am I a doctor. There are just things I know, things I've experienced, things I've worked with people on. And I usually start by saying, switch the word from fear to curious, because all words have frequency. And fear is a very low frequency, and it'll get you stuck faster than anything. But if you hold it out here, I'm afraid of E.T. Oh, well, then you're probably not going to get very far. But if you say, I'm curious about ETs, that puts you on a different frequency, a different path, a different journey, which is where you're supposed to go. Okay? What is it that you're really fearing? Oh, well, I saw in a movie that they hurt you, or they could kill you, or they will implant you, or they will whatever. Oh, really? Huh. But what if you said, I'm curious. I'm curious if they do that. Oh, how would I find out? What would I? And just start unraveling and asking questions, but make it in wonder, not in this rigid, it's got to look like me, like this way, because you won't get very far, and you'll be miserable. I'm sorry. Fear is crippling. It's a low-frequency word. There are many things we fear right now, but yet they're all things that you can't control. Why are you taking your energy and throwing it on fear when you can throw it on curiosity, throw it on wonder, throw it on love, throw it on helping the neighbor next door, and, hey, regardless of this, I'm going to do this, regardless of this. And some of my clients, I say to them, in the event this should occur, here's how I'm going to respond. And then I'm managing my life. It's not taking over me. In the event this should occur, here's how I'm going to respond. And boy, it gives you such peace. Now, can you plan for everything in your life? No. That's why I tell people, know what you believe. You have to know what you believe, whether you're a spiritual person, whatever it is, because whatever it is greater than us. And guess what? All the things I feared as a kid growing up, I'm still here. I'm still here, and I'm still helping, and I understand where to put it. And normally when something happens, like we have catastrophic things and family events and whatever, and they're things I cannot control. And I learned this years ago through my personal experiences with my family members. And I usually just say, I choose to believe good will come from this. I choose to believe good will come from this. Because there's always a gift, even in your deepest fear, in your deepest pain, and your deepest sorrow. There's a gift in it. And I choose to believe good will come from it. And guess what? It always does. It always does. And I know it for fact now, so I don't ever doubt it. Is it painful to go through? Does it hurt? Absolutely. We're human, of course. But I choose to believe good will come from this. And it always does. What I know to be true for me and what I've been downloaded information-wise is that they were here long before we were. And they were respectful of this area of Earth. They knew other civilizations. In fact, there are I think it's in Arizona, there are cave drawings of tribal children holding the hands of Sasquatch and walking with them. And Tom Powell would know more about that because he had a slide on that. And they've been around forever. The one that visited Tom 25 years ago came a second time when I was there. And we had this beautiful experience, and he gave us his name. And Sanachi's the name, and Sanachi means the bard, the keeper of history. And I didn't get the name till 3 days later, and Tom and I had stayed talking about what's the next step, what's going on here. And it was their history, something about their history, something about we need to come to terms or at peace with whether we know they came from here or where they're going there. We just need to come to terms with it. Do we really need to know that? Is it going to change our life? Is it going to... No, it's here that matters. It's the now that matters. But they are ancient. His is ancient. But remember, they are here to help us reach our frequency. That's what they're here for, to help mankind move off of being stuck here to here. So as far as giving credence or whatever to the ancestral line, I just know it exists. And I don't lose sleep over it. I just accept it because it's here that matters. And what I do with it and how I carry it forward. And am I going to teach children to be afraid? Am I going to teach children to shut their minds down and not be curious? And absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are here to help usher them along, not close their eyes. And Sasquatch is a biggie on not closing your eyes. So I don't know if that answered your question, but for me on timelines, can they prove it? Proof doesn't matter to me. And I respect science people. We need them. They have done so much in promoting this, but at some point, there's more than science. And I just happen to know the other side of it. That's all. But we can work together. I just don't need anything to stop me because this wasn't proven. I know what I know, and I accept it.